Right, gamers, it is time. OEM preview number 4 slash OEM preview the finale, as it has been posted as. I am riding. Yes, okay. I am riding the Cowie 450 today because this is the one bike that I've not used yet out of any of the previews. I granted the TM and the KTM have probably also been changed, but I wanted to try something very, very new. I believe these are the new tyres still in game, so we're going to rock those. I'm not really going to mess about with too. Weird, there's a lot of mapping options. Holy, I'm not going to mess around with anything. I'm going to leave it all stock as is. I'm just taking a little bit of fuel out as I always do, just force of habit. And the track that I'm going to. What did you see that? Oh, okay. I thought that like the bike was just trying to load in, but I think it's just the shadows underneath this tent here. So the track we're going to be riding today is a paid track. It's one that's a little bit older now. It is G-Dub and Bayer's 2016 version of Glen Helen, a track that I personally really enjoyed when it came out, but recently with kind of beta 18 and such, it's not been one that's been able to be enjoyed much at all, especially with the big hills in the middle of the track. The bikes would have some very, very funky physics. Now, in my very limited scrolling through Discord whilst I was away, I've seen such like varying opinions of these bikes. Apparently, they are so different to an extent where you literally have to kind of like relearn the game again. Apparently the turning is nothing like what it used to be, so it's going to be very interesting for me. I'm going to keep a very, very open mind and see how it goes. I've also seen a very interesting clip of our very own Smigdamp, who is a very loved member of this channel here. I think because of these tyres, so I just want to do a test here. Apparently you can stop on this hill completely and then get going again with no weird physics. If you've been putting off buying that new MX gear or you're just looking for some new daily MX related clothing, then head on over to fxrracing.com. Code MXPR_Lins15 at checkout will give you 15% off all motocross and lifestyle products. This code is applicable to the European, Swedish and Norwegian websites, not Canada or the USA. And whilst I've got your attention, you may as well subscribe to the channel. It's just one click of a button and it puts a big old smile on my face. Hope you enjoy the rest of the video. That's actually really impressive. I feel like normally I would have all sorts of head shake. I mean, I wheelied, but what do you expect? We're going up a very, very steep hill on a 450 with a lot of power trying to be put through the ground. So that has impressed me already. So that's good to see. The bike, it does feel like odd underneath me. And I don't want to say it's odd in a negative way. It's just odd as in it's different and the muscle memory isn't there for me just yet. Yeah, the bike feels very, very different to what I'm used to riding. It's like it feels heavy sometimes, then light at others. Let's see, do we get up and over this triple no problem? We do. I did see, I believe it was Cody James posted a clip of him starting a whip, and I'm not sure what like sort of button inputs he done during it. It's like he literally stopped the whip halfway through, and then the bike just came back to normal in the air. It's like it didn't follow through the entirety of the whip. So I'm not sure if that's a bug. I'm not sure if just with whatever changes they've made to these bikes, it affects it really, really differently in the air. But we'll see. We'll run a bunch of laps and see how it goes. The one thing that I'm really happy about with this preview number 4 release is that finally we've moved off of the KTM. It is no secret, I am not a big KTM enjoyer. I'm not sure what it is about that bike or the Austrian bikes in general in this game. I've just never gelled too well with them. And one thing that I've not done yet, which I'm gonna pause to have a quick read through on the OEM project website's post. I don't know if they've done like a log of exactly what's changed with these bikes compared to the last one, so give me a second. Okay, so I'm reading here. Can I zoom in a bit without it messing up too much? I can, there we go. Just to make it easier on your eyes, especially if you're on a mobile. So all this stuff behind, we'll get rid of that because it's not really too important. But it says, so in the previous version of these bikes, they implemented a fix to reduce the level of interference from, like, I guess, outside game forces and wonky rider physics, which I'm guessing a lot of it's to do with the uphill stuff to stop the front end wobbling too much. And it's like, we'll be able to provide you with an extended version of that fix, decreasing interference levels even further. This was done in an attempt to restore the connection between the player's input and what actually happens on your screen, rather than fighting against the game the whole time. Doesn't say really what was changed, but they're on about like going and changing your actual in-game like settings as well, like direct lean. I mean, I personally have ran almost identical settings in all of my 2,600 hours on this game, so to now be told that I'll probably need to change my in-game settings feels a little bit odd. I feel like it's slightly manipulating the way that I want to play, but we'll see how it goes as time goes on. I'm just having a quick scroll down through here and like just people's comments as well. It seems very, very mixed. We've got people here saying like they like the way that the new bikes handle bumps and they've got used to the cornering, but they're struggling to get sag levels right. There was one down here as well saying like between preview update number 2 to 4, it went from like really good to not so good. I feel like there's there's very mixed reviews on this. It doesn't seem like it's a landslide one way or the other. There's no way you're ever going to get my full scope and full opinion of these bikes within the space of one video. It's just not going to happen. You know, I feel like if what they're saying is true and it's to the point where you might have to start messing around with your actual in-game settings, then it's going to take many, many hours and lots of muscle memory. It'll be interesting to see if that truly is the final OEM preview release. Again, there's no real mention of what further changes were made. I'm hoping that might come with a full changelog once the full pack's released to hopefully help other people improve upon their bikes as well. We shall see. So far, in regards to that whole direct lean situation, they're saying that the kind of lower direct lean is better. I can see why they've said that, just in my very brief, like, 1.5 laps, because it seems like quite stiff in the corner initially, but then it feels like the bike takes quite a while to get itself stood up again, which causes a little bit of oversteer. So if I'm going around a right-hander, let's just say it's a 180 to the right, I'll find myself turning maybe 200 degrees rather than 180 degrees, which if I then lowered my direct lean, I believe would change slightly. I believe it would stand itself up a little bit quicker when I go to lean the opposite direction. I believe that's how that works. But it was very, very interesting stuff, and I didn't think we'd get to a point where we're being advised to change our in-game settings to kind of match the bikes. I definitely think you can look at that in a positive and a negative way. More negative because it's like, why should I change the settings I've used for 2,600 hours just to make a bike work properly? But then positive that they're going so deep into it and experimenting so much that possibly the only way to truly get around all of the game's funkiness and have like a lot of consistency and good feeling on the bike, you might have to just change the way the game is played from the ground up. So I'm not going to kind of form a solid opinion on that, especially not in such a short time as 2 laps on a track. I'm really, really not. One thing I am going to do though is we're going to spin a few more laps around here, but I want to go mess about with some Supercross as well. I am someone who runs stock stuff a lot of the time. I don't really mess around with setups too much. If someone sends me a setup that I use and enjoy, then I'll usually just stick with that until someone else sends me another setup that I look at and enjoy. I want to say, oh god, can I get stopped for this inside? Oh god. That's what I mean right there. So I oversteered so much there that I went back off to the other side of the track. Also, it feels like not much in the way of engine braking. I'm sure that can be changed with some gearing changes, but I mean, look at this right here. I haven't got my controller over there on at all right now, but I went up that whole hill with my left hand off the controller. I just had the accelerator on, and I didn't need to fight against the bike at all. Didn't need to kind of correct the steering. Had no wonkiness whatsoever. So they've done a very, very good job at hills by the looks of it so far. One thing that I felt was the case on the KTM, which might not be the case now that they've been updated again. Obviously, I'm just riding the Cowie in this video, as opposed to the KTM. I felt like they had to stiffen the bike up so much to make it feel just more solid up hills. I felt like it really negatively impacted the suspension and how it handled bumps. These seem to handle bumps okay. I think the bumps on this track are fairly like smaller, choppy ones rather than large ones that we get from track creators like JV, for example. So these might be a little bit more difficult to test the bikes on. It seems like the back end can be a little bit lively coming down some of these hills for sure, and I think when you combine that with the lack of engine braking in these bikes as well, it seems a little bit difficult to get stopped sometimes. But hey, if we end up going in the direction of these bikes from a competitive standpoint in the aerial series, for example, I've just completely oversteered in that corner. I think a lot of people are going to have to put a lot of hours in, because if you was to say, hey, by the way, SMX at the LA Coliseum this Friday. We're doing it on OEM preview bikes now. I think everybody would be like, holy crap, I can't go in a straight line, what's going on? So I'm gonna keep an open mind. You know, I'm not gonna kind of sit on one side of the fence one way or the other. This is very, very different. Some corners like that, I'm doing absolutely fine. Like, feels really nice, really solid. I think it's just the 180s that I'm struggling in, just to get the bike turned as much as I would like it to. And honestly, I don't want to be forced to change my settings, because I rotate for a lot of different bikes in this game, whether it's current OEMs or whether it's factory bikes, or depending on when this video comes out, if it's before or after a video that I've done on Hurren's new Battle Creek, a whole different type of bike entirely. But I don't want to have to go and keep changing my settings all the time, depending on what bikes I'm using. I just want to feel the differences in the bikes themselves, rather than in the game as a whole. And I hope that's not taken in a negative way. I'm not trying to, like, poo-poo on these bikes at all. I really do recognise the time and effort that goes into these bikes. I really, really do. I'm sure that there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see now. For anyone that's unaware, in terms of like biased opinions on my behalf, I'm not part of OEM now at all. You know, I left under my own power about 3 weeks ago or so now. So yeah, there's no bias stuff at all. I'm well on the fence. I'm in the same position as you guys, where I'm just kind of taking the bikes that we get as they come and seeing how they ride. So I've got no behind the scenes knowledge anymore. I'm just kind of in the dark, like you guys are. It'll be very nice to see. Obviously, I don't know a time frame of when a full pack would be released. I feel like there's rumours of us potentially using new OEM bikes for the LAN event that's going on in Italy. So if that is the case and that comes to fruition, then we're looking at, what is it, like start-ish of November. I don't think they'd dump some new bikes on us and be like, oh, by the way, you've got a couple of days before you race these bikes competitively at like the most important MX Bikes event there's ever been. So I'm going to keep an open mind. I really thought that I'd go into this video, ride the bikes a little bit and be like, okay, they're really good, or they're really bad, or there's not much difference. But this is like opening a whole different can of worms. It really, really is. And I cannot unstate enough. I know there's probably not been many compliments or bad things either way. I feel like I've been quite on the fence this whole time. They handle hills really, really well. Like turning out of that left 180 just now, you kind of still turn in as you exit the corner and up the hill. I mean, I can turn side to side up this hill here, no issue at all. These bikes would probably be so damn sexy on enduro. It's crazy. Maybe I'll do that in my spare time this evening. Maybe I'll try them out on a bit of Enduro Life, or we'll try them out on some public lobby streams in the near future. In terms of like things I'd kind of want to see changed a little bit, if there's any way of kind of getting the same sort of feeling on the hills without me having to adjust my direct lean for the corners to be so different, I would love that. I don't want to go and have to change my settings based on like one bike to another, or a set of bikes to another. So say I want to ride these one day and then I want to go and ride factory, I don't want to have to keep changing my settings back and forth to get a similar feel. And then also, I'm not sure if anyone has mentioned to them at all yet about engine braking. I feel like it's almost non-existent. No, I'm putting it down into first gear, down these hills and some of these corners, and the bike's just running on. You know, it's very, very, very brake dependent. But so far, I mean, on the national side of things, it's handling what I'm doing pretty well. And I've had no slow physics. I've had no wonky uphill physics, so they definitely are doing what they say they do. It's just so different, my god, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be unhappy with that, with how different it is. Some people might really, really enjoy it. I guess it depends really how many hours you've got in the game, because if you're like me and you've got coming up to 3,000 hours at this point, it's probably going to be a little bit demoralising to be like, alright, wipe all that away, learn it all again. Whereas if you're new to the game, maybe you've got 100 hours, it's like, oh, I don't really notice much of a difference because you haven't got that fully ingrained muscle memory in you just yet. But that's the national side of things. I'm going to move over to a few of the Supercross tracks. I'm going to do... I think I might do the French WSX track, because I think that's one of the hardest Supercross tracks that we've had as of late, made by Stone Rider. So let's switch over and we'll give that one a go. You know, one thing that I'd be very, very interested to see, which I might test out at a later date, is how much of these new physics are bike related and how much of them are tyre related. Because obviously tyres play a huge part in this game, they really do. If I'm riding along here, and what it feels like is if I'm riding along and then I turn, it feels like there's almost a delay in the turning happening. So if I want to go along and turn left, it feels as like... So if I was coming up to this, I guess, like, skidoo, whatever you want to call it, and turn to the right, like this, it feels like my front wheel gets pushed out really far to the left first. Now, I know in terms of motorbikes, if you turn, like if I'm turning left, your handlebars go slightly right first, and that's to initiate the lean for your bike to lean over. There's a very, very interesting video online of, I think it's called something like People Don't Know How Bikes Work, and essentially, even on a bicycle, I have no rear tyre, I've just noticed in my shadow. Very interesting. Even on a bicycle, when you're riding one IRL, you actually, without realising, you turn the handlebars slightly the opposite direction to initiate your lean first of all. So it's, people are always wondering, like, why is my steering reversed? It's not reversed, that's how bikes work, and people don't actually realise it. But it feels like that's more delayed on these bikes. Seems like it takes quite a while for that kind of lean to initiate and move over. So we'll see how that kind of plays out as we go. It did not handle well through the whoops at all. Straight away. However, I want to take that with a grain of salt, because I imagine it's very, very difficult to get the suspension on these bikes straight out of the box to work really well on Supercross and work really well on Nationals. That flew over that triple very easily, like almost too easily. We'll see how it goes here. Again, it's so odd. The muscle memory is just not. It's not there anymore. I'm trying to learn things from scratch. I feel like I'm just wobbling around the track. Have these got... Hang on. Have these got, like, just a disgusting amount of traction or something? Because I'm comparing these to current OEM bikes right now. This rhythm section, I couldn't quad this section to save my life. I have just barely attacked the triple there, and I have cased the quad really, really hard. As you can see, whoops... whoops might not be these bikes' fortes just yet, but as I'm not a suspension tech, I'm not going to go messing around with stuff, so we're just going to ignore the whoops completely. I feel like... Oh, they feel quite floaty in the air. I feel like the suspension's very... I think it gives you a lot of pop off the jump faces, which is going to be interesting to see how that works from a Supercross standpoint. Let's go on, off. I don't feel like I've got to put much effort in at all. I feel like it just floats over these quite easily. It's just, yeah, the only thing I'm struggling is trying to get these 180 bowl turns right. It's like the bike straightens itself up a lot differently as you're exiting it. Let's try and do it again here. Like, that's really easy. I've not got over those triples that easy before on any bike, whether it's factory bikes or current OEMs. That's very peculiar, and I'm struggling to work out what part of the bike is making that so easy. I don't know if it's the actual bike's physics, the bike's suspension, if it's the tyres giving you like a bunch more grip. I really don't know. Let's try it. Oh, let's try skimming the top of these a little bit more. Oh, definitely a lot slower than the current OEM bikes are through those. Definitely having to move about a lot more on the bike as well. I can't just kind of get on the top of them and let it eat, per se. Let's see, can I triple, or can I step over here? Oh, not quite. Might be doable. That's doable on the factory bikes, but I don't want to turn this into a comparison video, because this seems like it is a completely different way of playing the game now at this point. I can see why in the comments on the OEM project website people were so, like, 50-50. I can see why people would hate having to relearn anything, but I can also see why people would really enjoy it as well. In terms of what they mentioned about eliminating external forces, I'm not sure about that, because in some of these corners, it really does feel like I'm fighting the bike to stand up, or to put the bike where I want to put it in the bowl turn. I feel like it's pulling me like one way or another out the turns. So from a standpoint of external forces causing like handlebar swap or heel wobble, I feel like that's gone. But in the corners, I do feel like I'm fighting against it. I feel like it's not going where I'm telling it to go. That could just be me being so used to how the game handles normally that I feel like that's right. And now we're playing in this new way, it feels off. But it'll probably all come with time. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna keep an open mind to this thing, because I think we're at quite a healthy point in this game at the moment. I've also noticed that I'm being ejected from the bike when I'm upside down in the air, which doesn't usually happen. Usually just lets you ride out until you crash and your head hits the ground. So that's an interesting concept. Hopefully that's not like a permanent thing, and it's just like by chance that's happened to me twice, because the free ride boys might be a little bit annoyed if they can't do any backflips or front flips. So let's try and scrub this. How far do I go if I try quadding this? That's unreal. That's a lot further than I'm used to going. So there's pros and cons. I'm really not sure what my final viewpoint on these are. I think it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of practice. I'm interested to see if they apply these sorts of changes across the whole lineup of bikes. It'll be interesting to see what like the fan favourite bikes feel like, whether it's the Honda or Yami 450s, for example, or I suppose the same with the 250s. The Yami and the Hondas seem to be the way forwards. Japanese life, love the Japanese bikes. Not so much a fan of the Austrian ones in this game, but this Kawi feels odd. It just feels different, and I don't want to say that it's bad or it's good because I really couldn't tell you, and I don't think that this video is enough time for me to really form that sort of an opinion one way or the other. So I'm definitely going to spend a little bit of time on and off these bikes over the next few days. I don't want to completely ruin myself on the game by learning these bikes when I've still got events like the SMX playoffs, for example, LA Coliseum, where we use the normal OEM bikes. I don't want to grind out these bikes a bunch and then not be able to play the game normally anymore, because that will just hinder me from a competitive standpoint. But I'll keep them on the back burner. I am very, very interested to see what you boys have to say about these bikes. I genuinely am. I know this video is probably coming out quite a bit after these bikes are released. I'm hoping that there's not another update to them in that time, because otherwise that's a little bit awkward. But whatever day you're watching this, bear in mind that I'm recording this on the 17th, which is Sunday. You might not be seeing this until about Thursday or something along those lines, because I do have a bunch of different videos coming up on all the new tracks that have been released. So, pros. The way it handles hills is incredible. I can actually swerve up hills with no issue at all. I've not tried it yet, but I've seen clips of people actually doing race starts now, where you can have the throttle wide open on a 450, lent all the way forwards on the gate, and you will not backflip like we do on current builds. I think that's more in the tyres than the bike itself. For cons, possibly having to change my actual settings in-game rather than just bike geometry changes feels a bit odd to me, and not something I'm too open to changing just yet, so we'll see how that goes. And then suspension is not ideal through whoops at all. Could just be me again trying to learn the bike. And then don't really feel any engine braking. The engine braking just feels non-existent, so it's all in the actual manual input of brakes now, which really does contradict my normal riding style. I'm usually very dependent on banging it down the gears and kind of coasting / letting the engine brake and do its thing into some corners. So lots for me to maybe work on. I'm not sure where we stand as a community on these bikes moving forwards and what series are going to use on different bikes, but very interested to see your guys' thoughts if you've used these. There's no link to these that I can provide you. Like they're not free by any means. These preview bikes are all done under the OEM supporter thing, which I think is €5 you have to donate on the OEM project website. But obviously the actual full release, whenever it does come, will be free to everybody, so don't worry about that. But that'll do it from me. Very, very interesting. Lots of food for thought, and I feel like I've kind of come out of this video with no definitive opinion. I feel like I've kind of ended up exactly where I started, but I mean, I hope you enjoyed regardless, and please do drop a like if you did, subscribe to the channel if you're new, all that good stuff. It really helps your boy out, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.